Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with veteran Swiss jazz drummer Fredy Studer. He talked about his latest solo work of material called Now's the Time. He was born in Switzerland, his current home, and where Neon Jazz caught up with him recently. He began playing drums at the age of 16, and he has a highly diverse spectrum of music styles, encompassing march and dance music, as well as beat, folk, rock, psychedelic, blues, jazz rock, rhythm and blues, be-bop, free jazz, free funk, and improvisation. His music performances since the early 70s have been an eclectic mix, and he's had a lot of freelance activities with musicians all over the place. So get to know him and dig this interview, my friends. Okay, Fredy, thank you again for taking some time out from your beautiful abode there in Switzerland to talk to Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's okay. You're a musician too, by the way?
If there is anything that I can play, it's the drums.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
So let's start off here with your latest 2018 Now's the Time.
Yeah, that's, so to speak, my first solo recording. It was a surprise for myself, also because I was never interested in, especially, in playing solo, because in my opinion, the case of playing music is the thing to play together, at least with a duo, at the smallest combo, or even more people. That's why, let's say, visual artists or writers sometimes get a bit jealous because we as musicians, we are able to create something together. Once a while I got asked from friends, like for art galleries, if I could, on a vernissage, do a little solo, but I did, but I never really went into it until a couple of years ago when the Willisau Festival asked me to do in a little space during the festival a solo performance. And then I said yes, and I prepared myself much more than before for solo, and that was a great performance. And so friends came to me and other people, and they encouraged me to to follow that path. And then I made the decision, okay, let's see what I come up with. And so then I had the plan to put out the solo recording.
Beautiful. So how do you see each record you release? Is it kind of an evolution of who you are as a musician? Is it what's going on at the time? How do you see them?
You mean recordings in general? I did. Since the beginning, I was in January 1967 in London, and I heard and saw the Jimi Hendrix Experience, which made a real impact to me. Since then, it's like I have there is a life before and after Hendrix. And since then, I went really into music, and since I'm interested in different genres, different kind of music, that's the reason that I'm not just concentrating on one specific genre, like improvised music or groove music or this and that. There are several bands, which the last one with Koch and Schütz, we ended up last year, but it lasts 27 years, and we followed our kind of music, and there is this and that, bands, projects, but that's always the case I'm into at the moment,
So, talk to me about growing up in Switzerland and how you picked the drums.
I always liked to play the drums, but at that time, it was not easy because Switzerland is not like the United States, where the drums more or less, were seen as an adult instrument. So I had to go through several years to fight for it, and I was not able to get into a school or taking lessons. The best thing what happened to me was doing the Basel drumming, which is more based on rudiments. In fact, has not much to do with playing the drums, but that was a basic thing. And then the beat movement, the British invasion came from England, like the Beatles, the Stones, all that kind of stuff, which made a change like everywhere in the world. And then, as I told you before, since Hendrix, I knew what music is all about. I discovered improvisation in general, and I followed that path. And then I played in amateur bands in our little city, and then I was recognized, and I got offers from people from Zurich and here and there. And then in 1972 we formed OM, which exists for 10 years at that time, which was, the basic start for our career, so to speak, as musicians.
You've spent some time with the great Franco Ambrose, and I've always really enjoyed his work. What has it been like to be a part of his outfits?
It was at the beginning, then at that time, George Gruntz did recognize me, because at that time, probably in Switzerland, I was the first guy, because of OM, we were into that kind of electric jazz, and at that time, I was, of course, influenced by Tony Williams, Jack DeJohnette, much more than Elvin Jones, which, of course, I heard before on records, and for me is phenomenal. But because those other guys, they played jazz, let's say the swing, also in a binary phrasing, which I picked up. And George Gruntz recognized that, and because he was looking for something new or fresh or whatsoever, so he asked me, and because he was playing a lot with Franco, then I got involved into that scene. And of course I learned a lot, because as I told you, I didn't study, I had no drum lessons, I'm stupid, not a trained musician in that case, so the path was learning by doing, and to play with those guys, and then through them be able to play, let's say, with, bass players like Miroslav Vitus, Dave Holland, or like a saxophone player like Joe Henderson. I learned a lot, because after each gig I knew exactly what I have to do, what I have to practice, what I have to, jump into to improve.
So you've had a really long career. You've played all over the world. You've been in Europe, America, Japan, Central and South America. Are you happy with where your career is?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I take it the way it is, and let's say as coming out of nothing, no education, I would say I was lucky. And since I had that side job as a consultant with Paiste in the sound development since 1970, which was probably, in average 3 days a month, that gave me a fantastic foundation. So I always could do what I want to do, what I'm interested in it. I got also a few offers from more, let's say, I don't judge it, but more commercial stuff which I was not interested in, but I didn't have to do it. So I always could play the music I really and still do. I was interested. So in that case, yeah, I'm happy,
Yeah. So what's the best advice that you could give to a young musician today? You've seen the world, you've played for many years. What advice would you give?
That's a hard question. I mean, the only thing I can say from my point of view is just follow your feeling, do what you believe in. I mean, I got the same recommendation at that time from the drummer Danny Richmond, the drummer of Charles Mingus, because at that time I was playing in rock contexts and in jazz, and I had sometimes arguments, fights with other musicians because of that, and I spoke with Danny about that, and he told me just don't listen to them, do what you believe in and what you have to do, and play your ass off. So that's the only thing I guess I also could tell to younger musicians, which I understand today is a completely different situation than at that time, So, you have to deal with all that digital and social media and all that stuff, which at that time we didn't have to do. But concerning the music, yeah, try to be honest and try to do what you believe in, what you hear, what you feel. That's what I could say.
So, why do you love to play improvised music?
Yeah, because improvisation is a big part of life too. I mean, you, me, everybody, more or less, depending to the situation, has to improvise every day. I'm very interested also, in structured music, in song music, in grooves, in this and that. But improvised music is a very special genre also, which I really like to do, and which you can learn from also to play other kinds of music and vice versa. That's like for me the spectrum was always really wide, and that's what I discovered when I heard Hendrix, because I was really a greenhorn at that time, but I recognized there is a trio in the same concert that play a love song, let's say like The Wind Cries Mary, and after there is a real wall of sound, noise, like feedback, and there is a jazz-influenced tune like Third Stone from the Sun, and this and that, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. I want to ask you this. If you were to come to Kansas City and you had to explain briefly to somebody that might come to see your show what you do as a musician, what would you say?
Trying to nail it, trying to come to the point, whatever, even if it's music with a concept, or even if it's completely open improvised music, but trying to catch it, like with Kostic Studer, for instance. We started in the early 90s and played at that time in that genre of music with samples, with sequencers, and nobody knew how to label our music, so we found out we label it by ourselves hardcore chamber music, which is a paradox, but on the other hand expressed in a way what we're doing. And what could I say? Depending to what kind of band or project I would play in Kansas City,
Yeah.
But the core of it is always the same for me. It doesn't matter with whom I'm playing, what kind of music or genre I'm playing. There is also a lot of music I don't play. There is music I don't want to play, but I like to listen to, but I wouldn't be interested, or I wouldn't be able to play it, but I still love it, so I was choosing my way. Yeah.
Beautiful. Fredy, that was my final question. Thank you for taking some time out for Neon Jazz here in Kansas City. Send our best to Switzerland and keep on making that great music.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Switzerland, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Fredy for his time and his music and that longevity. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.